Hi, I woke up today feeling pretty good until I remembered that the United States of America exists. It's hard not to be aware of its existence because America is inescapable in our daily life. Even if you turn off the news, you are still going to use some sort of technology throughout your day, and almost every technological product that we use is American. This very video is posted on an American website, and you're probably watching it from an American phone or an American web browser. But what if you don't want to support American tech companies and let them access your data? Would you have to give up all modern technology and start using one of the old-timey Nokia mobile phones proudly made in Finland? Let's try to find out. In today's video, I'm going to explore non-American alternatives to some of the popular tech products that we use all the time to see if it is in fact possible to live without enriching American techno-billionaires. But before we begin, a message to all Americans watching this. I'm sorry, it's not your fault. Unless, of course, you support your current administration or think that big tech monopolies are very cool, in which case it is definitely your fault and I'm taking my apology back. But for everyone else, I feel your pain. I really do. I am Russian. I lived through the political processes that are currently happening in your country, so I can sympathize. Speaking of parallels between Russia and the US, it was a huge mistake for Europe to become so reliant on cheap Russian energy, and undoing this mistake took a lot of effort and caused a lot of suffering. Being almost entirely reliant on American technology is arguably an even worse mistake. Imagine if the American government orders Google to shut down all Google services in countries they don't like, or for people they don't like. Not just the Google search, but Gmail, Google Chrome, the whole Google account thing can disappear just like that. Do you know how many websites I can only access because Google Chrome remembers my login and password information and fills it in for me? All of them. If this thing is shut down, my entire online identity is gone. Not just the fun websites, but like utilities providers, the government services. I won't be able to access anything. And yes, maybe it's on me. I shouldn't have become so reliant on Google. It's definitely a bad idea to forget all your passwords and rely on Google for everything. But even if I was careful around Google, what if Microsoft or Apple decide to shut down our Windows or Apple computers? That would be terrifying. And yes, maybe Americans are not going to do something that drastic because they are very reasonable and predictable people. But still, American big tech companies collect our data that can be used to spy on politicians and activists. They control what we see in search results. They control what we see on social media because they control the recommendation algorithms. And of course, they make money from us. Money that could have gone to better people. Money that they can use to monopolize everything even more, to lobby American government to do stuff like block competition, or even, I don't know, start more wars so that they can sell more of those AI-powered attack drones. And if you live in the US, then you're even more vulnerable to the American big tech because they can definitely spy on your emails and any other messages, and they will sell you out to your government if the government asks not very nicely. And if you think that I'm being overly dramatic, just remember that big tech has absolutely zero principles. They will do anything for profit, and of course they will do anything to keep their profits going. So if they think that not complying with the government is going to cut into their profit margins because of some kind of retaliation, they will comply. So you see now how it's a good idea to keep your American tech dependence to a bare minimum. Now let's get into the funny video. As our first step, let's try to de-Americanize a thing we treasure most in our lives, our mobile phone, of course. If using an Apple device is non-negotiable for you, then this is impossible, I'm sorry. But if you don't mind using Android, then this is actually a pretty easy thing to do. There are many great brands like South Korean Samsung or Taiwanese Asus and HTC phones. My wife used to own an Asus phone and it was pretty cool. Now we both have Samsung phones and we like them a lot. Mine is actually a flip phone which you can turn into a tablet. I am using it to record this video so I cannot show it to you, but trust me, it is pretty nice. If you want to go European, there are a lot of great brands here as well. Maybe their models are not as advanced as the flagship models from Samsung, Google or Apple, but they have some unique advantages. For example, there is the Dutch brand Fairphone, which is designed to be an ethical alternative to modern smartphones. Which means two things. First, they ensure fair business practices at every step of the supply chain, so they do not depend on any unethical businesses. Nothing like sweatshops is used anywhere. From mining raw materials to assembling and packing this phone, it's all done with full compliance with the laws and with concern for the environment. They try to utilize as much recycled materials as possible, and when they do need raw materials, they try to source them from suppliers that extract them with as little environmental damage as possible. All of that is good by itself, but the main appeal of the Fairphone is that there is no planned obsolescence baked into it. You know how quickly phones become unusable because the battery starts to barely hold the charge, or how it becomes slower as time goes on, or if the phone breaks and you want to repair it, anything more serious than a cracked screen costs like 2/3 of a new phone. Or if your phone is older than a couple of years, it's impossible to find spare parts for it. So you have no choice but to buy a newer model, even if you want to spend some money to repair your old phone. This is all by design. Apple is most notorious for deliberately making their older phones worse when they release a newer model, but other brands do it too. And the saddest thing is, we kind of just accepted it as the norm. Like, of course we cannot just replace the battery when it can no longer hold charge. What a naive, stupid notion. Grow up. In the real world, such things are simply not possible. You have to buy a new phone every time any part of it breaks. Well, Fairphone challenges these pessimistic assumptions. Their phone is designed to last for long and also be repairable. Almost every part of it can be easily and quickly replaced, and you don't even need to go to the repair shop to do that. You can just do it at home. Fairphone is not unique in this regard. There are other European brands that focus on repairability, like German Shift Phone. There are also other interesting European brands like British Nothing Phone, but you get the idea. Replacing your American phone with a non-American alternative is pretty easy, and in many ways the non-American alternatives are plain better. Right, now that we have an America-free phone, it's time to browse some internet. But to do that, we need a web browser, and one that is not controlled by an American company. Now let's play a funny game. Let's start naming browsers, and we'll stop once we get to the one that is not American. So Google Chrome, obviously American. Safari, of course, American. Microsoft Edge, you get it. What else is there? Mozilla Firefox. Well, Mozilla Foundation is a non-profit, so it's not part of the big tech, but it is American, so it's disqualified. Also, they recently removed their pledge to never sell your data, which is pretty sketchy, to be honest. So yeah, definitely disqualified. Let's move on. Opera. Opera is originally Norwegian, and now it is owned and controlled by a Chinese company. So technically it is not affiliated with America, but I don't think replacing American tech with Chinese tech is the way forward. I mean, what's next? Using Yandex browser from Russia? No, thank you. The problem is we kind of ran out of browsers at this point, at least browsers that most people are aware of. So I dug a little deeper and I found a couple of viable options. The first one is the Vivaldi browser, made by part of the original team behind Opera. It's fully owned by its employees, meaning that there are no outside investors that might make some questionable business decisions in pursuit of profit. So that's good. There are two things that make it stand out for the average user. First, it's focused on privacy and security, which means it has a built-in ad blocker and tracking blocker. It never tries to build your online profile to sell to advertisers. Your data are encrypted and nobody has access to it except for you. Second, it is highly customizable. You can change almost everything about its design and features. So for users who like to personalize everything to their liking, that's a big pro. And if you don't want to, you can just leave the defaults on. The only potential downside of Vivaldi is that it's built on top of Chromium, which is an open source basic browser maintained by Google that serves as a base for most of modern browsers, including, of course, Google Chrome, but also Microsoft Edge and Opera. So everything related to the basic functionality, such as rendering the web pages, is controlled by the Chromium part, while all the features that Vivaldi promises are built on top of that. Because of that, Vivaldi will have no choice but to incorporate any changes that are made to Chromium. Most recently, for example, it had to incorporate Manifest v3, which is a fundamental change in browser engine that makes it harder to block ads and tracking. Still, I wouldn't worry too much about it because Vivaldi team is very determined not to let any adverse changes in Chromium affect the final users. And it's not like there is much choice there. Almost every browser is built either on Chromium or on top of the Firefox engine. So I think Vivaldi should be the browser of choice for anyone who wants to move away from American browsers. I have already used it for a few days, both on mobile and on my PC, and I only found one serious issue. Wikitalk doesn't work properly in Vivaldi. If you're not aware, Wikitalk is an endless scroll of random Wikipedia articles, and it is the best thing on the internet right now, at least if you love reading random Wikipedia articles, which I do. So on Vivaldi, probably because of some of the tracking blockers, it doesn't scroll indefinitely. It just loads a few articles the first time you go to the website, and then it kind of just stops. So that's a bummer, and I will have to keep using Google Chrome for Wikitalk. But for everything else, Vivaldi is pretty good. The other alternative I wanted to mention is the Mulvad browser. It's a bit more hardcore, it's really all about privacy, so it's not supposed to have mass appeal, it's supposed to have appeal to people who want to be completely untraceable online. The downside of Mulvad browser is that in order to maximize this privacy, it had to drop some of the useful features that I and many other browser users appreciate. For example, it doesn't sync your history or tabs, passwords, or bookmarks between your devices because it doesn't have a central storage for this data. Because of that, I don't think it has the same appeal, but if you are really concerned about your online privacy and you're fine with sacrificing some convenience, check it out. Now that we have our un-American web browser, we can start surfing the web. But where do we go? There are so many websites, and we don't know which websites have the information that we need. What if there was a way to search through all of those websites? Some kind of a search engine, if you will. When it comes to online search, Google is the way to do it. Not because it's perfect. Especially in the last couple of years, from my experience, it has become harder to find anything useful online. And the stupid AI summaries certainly do not help. So why is Google search so dominant? Well, for one, many people do not even perceive other search engines as an option. I mean, to Google is a verb that means to search online. Nobody says I binged or I DuckDuckGo'd. I DuckDuckWent. Anyway, Google is synonymous to online search in our mind, and it takes some effort to even consider other alternatives. Another reason why Google is so dominant is because there are very few viable alternatives. It's incredibly hard to build a search engine because in order to have a good search engine, first you need to read the entirety of internet. You need to save all of this information in a form of index in the searchable database, and then you need to update this index all the time because new websites appear all the time and old websites disappear, so you need to remove them from the index. And then you need to develop a good algorithm that would pick websites from your index that are the best matches for the query. And that can be incredibly hard as well because SEO specialists are always trying to adapt to this algorithm to make their websites rank higher based on some arbitrary criteria that the algorithm now uses. And if the algorithm can be gamed, then the search results will be filled by hyper-optimized websites that are not exactly relevant to the search or not the best results for the search. So you need to keep updating the algorithm. To do all that, you need an enormous amount of resources, billions, which only huge companies can afford. Because of that, there are only two global search engines available. It's Google and it is Bing, made by Microsoft. Most of the other search engines like DuckDuckGo depend on them. They use Bing and or Google under the hood, and then they kind of filter the search results or remove user tracking and all of that. But still, they depend on what American search engines return to them. And some of the European search engines, like Startpage, Ecosia, or Quant, currently depend on Bing or Google as well. However, things are moving in the right direction. Right now, the least Americanized of the engines I mentioned is Quant. It is partially dependent on Bing and partially dependent on its own custom-made search index. But not only that, together with Ecosia, they are collaborating in something called European Search Perspective, which is an initiative to build an independent European search index. This is expected to go online somewhere in the summer of 2025. So if you want to become less reliant on American search engines, you can start using Quant right now. It is not entirely reliant on America, and starting from summer 2025, it is expected to become fully independent. You can use Ecosia as well. It has some neat features like they plant trees for every search, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, if you want to de-Americanize your search, I would suggest starting using Quant or Ecosia and just wait until they sever all dependence on the American search indexes. I started using Quant a few days ago, and you know what? It's pretty good. I always find what I'm looking for. I never had the need to go back to Google for something I couldn't find using Quant. So switching from Google to Quant is pretty much a no-brainer at this point. So I encourage you to do that. It's free, it's very simple. Just a side note, if you want to use Quant with Vivaldi browser, Quant is actually not the default search engine for Vivaldi, it's SmartPage, which is a Dutch search engine with some privacy features, but it's still dependent on Google and Bing. So you would need to manually change your search engine to Quant. It's not a big deal at all, just keep in mind that there is one small extra step involved if you want to replicate my setup completely. Now, before we go searching for some fun websites with Quant from our Vivaldi browser, we need to secure an email address so that we could register on those websites. Thankfully, it's much easier to create an email provider and associated services than it is to create a search engine. So there are tons of viable alternatives. While researching, I realized that a lot of them are not free. Instead, they have a very cheap subscription option, €1 per month. Popular services like mailbox.org or Post.io work like that. You need to subscribe to them. It's not just for having an email, you get other features like calendar. Also, they are ad-free, they are focused on privacy, they're not controlled by big investors, and they are environmentally friendly, so you are buying a lot of things for this €1 per month. But for many people, myself included, the idea of having to pay any amount of money just for having an email address seems ridiculous. So for people like us, of course there exist free alternatives, for example ProtonMail or Tutamail. Personally, I chose ProtonMail just because they have a whole ecosystem, like a password manager, VPN, cloud storage, and even a crypto wallet if I'm ever in need of such a thing. But it really doesn't matter. Email is a pretty basic service, and almost all of the providers are identical, except some of them are American and we want to avoid them. Right, now that we figured out email, it's time to have some fun online. And as we all know, online fun includes social media, content platforms, and streaming services. To be honest, I don't have much hope for finding good non-American alternatives in any of these categories, but hope is a luxury these days. Sometimes you have to just breathe deep and move forward, not because you believe that you'll succeed, but because surrender is not an option. So let's go. Starting with social media and content platforms, I think these two are pretty much one and the same at this point, because every social media also doubles as a content platform, so I'm going to use these terms interchangeably. Instead, I'm going to divide content platforms into three categories. Microblogging, which is what you do on Twitter, Threads or Blue Sky, photo sharing, which is what you do on Instagram, and finally video hosting, which is what you do on YouTube or TikTok. When I started to research microblogging platforms, I was kind of surprised to realize that the only alternative to the American platforms like Twitter, Threads, or Blue Sky is to use decentralized federated platforms that are part of the so-called Fediverse, like Mastodon. You might have heard about Mastodon before. If you didn't research it by yourself, you're probably asking, what's so different about federated platforms? What does it even mean? Can't I just go to mastodon.com and register my account and start microblogging? Well, no, not exactly. The thing about Mastodon or any other parts of the so-called Fediverse is that it's not just one website. Mastodon comprises many independent servers or instances, and each instance has independent content and moderation policy, community standards, and obviously the community of people that exist on this instance. One analogy that a lot of descriptions of the Fediverse use is email. You can have all of those different email providers, but it's still the same technology, still the same protocol. You can easily send emails from Gmail to Yahoo or Proton, and it will work. In the same sense, you can choose different Mastodon instances, and you will still be part of Mastodon Federation. The email analogy only goes so far, because in case of email, it doesn't matter which email provider sent you this or that email. But in case of Mastodon, posts made on your instance and posts made on other instances are treated differently. You have the local feed, where you see posts made locally, and you also have the federated feed, which contains everything else post from other instances. So this is a pretty big change from the centralized social media. Anyone can create their own Mastodon instance, set up their own content policy, moderation rules, grow a very particular community that is going to discuss something within this instance, but they will also be connected to the rest of the federation. They will still see posts made by other people, they can still comment on them. This is all very interesting and a little bit confusing, so I am going to start using Mastodon and see how it goes. So what are the downsides? Why cannot I recommend everyone to switch over to Mastodon? Well, there are a few downsides. One is that because of this federated nature, your experience will depend on the instance that you joined. So you have to be extra careful to select the instance with the people who talk about what you want to hear. Also, it might be problematic to find your people, your community, because the user base is so small. User base of Threads or Twitter is measured in hundreds of millions. Maybe for Twitter it's a bit exaggerated, but it is definitely more than 100 millions. For Mastodon, it is measured in just millions. And that's divided across all of the different instances, so of course each individual instance will be much smaller. Obviously, quantity doesn't mean quality. I am sure there are tons of interesting discussions happening on Mastodon right now, and there are tons of smart people, interesting people who are using it. But still, it will be a challenge, most likely for many people, to find the community they are looking for, if so few people are out there. However, one major pro of Mastodon is that it is not controlled by anyone, it is fully free and open source, which means it is completely independent from whatever America does. And this is the goal for us here, right? Find something independent from America and the big tech. So Mastodon might not be able to directly replace Twitter or Threads for you, but I would still encourage you to give it a try. There are people out there, and if we all join, then there will be more people out there. I will give Mastodon a try, but I will understand if you don't want to follow me into this final frontier of the internet for now. Alright, now that all the nerds are out there on Mastodon microblogging, let's talk about alternatives to cool social media like Instagram. Believe it or not, this situation here is exactly the same as for microblogging. There is no direct competitor to Instagram, and all the existing alternatives are either hyper-specialized or federated. The main one is PixelFed, which is a federated photo sharing platform pretty similar to Instagram, at least from the UI perspective. It doesn't have Reels for better or for worse. And obviously its user base is much smaller than Instagram's and fragmented into different communities. If you use Instagram to share photos with your friends, then it can be a good alternative, as long as you can convince your friends to join it too. But if you're a creator, if you depend on Instagram for income, for finding clients, for your other businesses, then I don't think PixelFed is there. And I don't know if it will ever be there. I would still encourage you to try it. You can find a new community on PixelFed, you can invite your followers from Instagram there, but it will be an uphill battle for sure. In my Metaverse video, I made fun of this book for suggesting that, yeah, there is no one there, but you can bring your existing subscribers to the Metaverse and then make money from them on the Metaverse. And I still stand by this opinion, but I think there are big differences between Fediverse and Metaverse. One is designed to be independent from big tech. It's designed to focus on human connection instead of monetization. And the Metaverse is pretty much the opposite. It's embracing the big tech. It embraces speculative assets like NFTs and digital land that you can sell. So the appeal of the Metaverse is mainly you can make money there somehow, while the appeal of the Fediverse is that you will be independent from the big tech. And I think that's a worthy goal. I think we should try to do that. So if you are tired of Meta controlling your Instagram experience, try PixelFed. It won't hurt because it's free, and if you don't like it, you can just stop using it. Finally, let's talk about video hosting platforms. Believe it or not, there actually is a commercial alternative to YouTube or TikTok. It's Dailymotion, a platform based in France. It was actually created over 20 years ago. And it has everything: short clips, longer videos, sports, news, music, even movies and TV series. And it has a decent user base. Reportedly over 300 million unique users every month, which is pretty good. I mean, it's much smaller than giants like TikTok or YouTube, which has 2 billion monthly active users, I think, but it's still very nice and 2 orders of magnitude more than any of the federated platforms. The problem with Dailymotion is that it appears to be a giant pile of trash. The videos, for the most part, are not original, they're just re-uploads from other websites or from TV. The categories are a mess. I tried to look into the fun category to see if there are any good commentary YouTubers, but I found full-length movies, some news about politics, and there are some like prank videos or stuff like that, but mainly it's just clips from TV shows which are broken into 1 minute long tiny clips for some reason. I don't know why, probably it's some way to maximize your revenue on this platform, but in any case, from what I've seen, this platform is not good. Granted, I have not been using this website, so maybe it has a good recommendation algorithm and by default it just shows me the most popular videos on the platform, which are trash on YouTube as well. The problem with that is I cannot verify it because I do not know if these videos that are shown to me are popular or they are just newest uploads or they are random, because I cannot see the view count. There is no view count on this platform. You cannot know if this video was watched by millions of people or it's been watched by 0 people. Also, you cannot know what other people think about these videos because comments also do not exist. I can kind of see how both of these can be a good thing. For example, if you don't have the view count, it benefits smaller creators because a lot of people are reluctant to watch videos that have very few views because they are afraid that the videos are low quality compared to something that's been watched by a ton of people. So if nobody can see the number of views, then people would treat newer videos from smaller creators more fairly. And that is definitely a good thing. As for comments, well, comments are terrifying. I'm very vulnerable to criticism, but what I'm even more vulnerable to is praise, because I don't know how to handle compliments. I don't know how to handle people saying, hey, nice video, man, keep up the good work. What do? Do I like this comment? But this is so low effort, I feel like. So maybe I should comment thanks But that's so boring and repetitive, and if I just reply thanks to every positive comment, it's even more cringe than just liking them. I have to come up with a unique, funny, and relevant reply to every positive comment. But that's very hard to do, and even if I manage to do that, what if it's not good enough? What if my reply is not funny enough? What if they don't like it and they are disappointed in me because my reply was bad? Anyway, that's my problem, of course. The problem with the absence of comments is that I don't see how you can build like a community of people without comments. To initiate a conversation, to interact with fans without comments, it is very hard to do. And because Dailymotion does not have comments, it seems to incentivize the kind of content that does not require comments, which includes, of course, all of those 1 minute long clips from TV show. If you just upload this, you don't care what people think about these clips. You didn't make this TV show, you just cut it into smaller pieces and put it out there. And the only thing you care about is money that you make from people watching these. You know what I feel would do very well on Dailymotion? Faceless AI-generated slop. Every hustler who tries to make money from faceless YouTube channel is trying to post this on YouTube, but I feel like Dailymotion is the place where it should go, because there are no comments, so people cannot call you out for posting AI-generated slop. And the existing content there is so bad that people will probably not recognize that they are watching something created by AI. But I might be wrong, okay? If you have positive experience with Dailymotion, if you used it and you watch some good content there, please let me know in the comments. I will be very interested to see different perspectives. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video where I apologize to Dailymotion and, I don't know, give people tips on how to use it properly. But for now, I cannot recommend it. If I cannot recommend Dailymotion, then what can I recommend? Other alternatives? Well, sort of. There is, of course, the Fediverse, and for video hosting, there is something called PeerTube. It shares the same pros and cons of other federated services. It's fully free, it's independent from the big tech, from American companies. Anyone can host like a private PeerTube server and put videos out there and control the rules and everything. So that's pretty good. The downside is also obvious. It's just way too small to be a viable YouTube alternative. They say that they have about 600,000 videos distributed over 1,000 instances or so, which is a laughably small number compared to YouTube. However, they are not trying to be a YouTube rival. They don't try to compete with YouTube. They don't build a huge platform that everyone should move on from YouTube. No, they want to create a free, independent, non-commercial video hosting platform for anyone who needs it. And in that, I think they are succeeding, because some people are using it, and I'm going to try using it for a while, explore what's out there, and probably make a follow-up video on this one. But of course, it is not a full YouTube replacement. So unfortunately, there is no decent alternative to this website, free or commercial. Okay, social media and content platforms are very fun, but what if you want to watch something made by professionals? You would have to use streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime or Disney+, but these of course are off limits. We are looking for non-American alternatives, and thankfully they exist, sort of. One nice alternative that I found is Arte. It's mainly a source of documentaries and news, but it also has a decent collection of European movies and TV shows. Of course, their collection is much smaller than that of Netflix or any other big streaming provider, and a lot of it is in French or German, which may be a good thing actually if you speak one of those languages. It is free, so there is literally no reason not to try it. If you like British content, there is BritBox, which is a streaming service for British movies and TV shows, both modern and classic. I heard it's pretty good and it's cheaper than Netflix, but unfortunately it's not available everywhere. I cannot watch it from the Netherlands, for example, so I cannot attest to its quality, but you can research it and see if it's worth it for you. If you're looking for more variety, there is Viaplay, which is a Scandinavian company, and it has a lot of movies and TV shows from Scandinavia and other European countries, but also some of the popular American TV shows. The only downside of it is that it is kind of pricey. Its ad-free tier is actually more expensive than Netflix for me. It is available in the Netherlands, so that's progress compared to BritBox. So you can try Viaplay if you want. There are other smaller, more niche streaming services like Mubi, but unfortunately there is no single rival to the American streaming giants. Streaming services are, of course, not the only way to find movies and TV shows online. There is one other way, which is called digital piracy. Now, this thing is controversial. It is illegal, so don't do that. I do not suggest you to do that, but it has some pros to it. First, it is free, of course. Second, you can find pretty much anything, even something that's not commercially available in any form, which is the case for a lot of older or more obscure TV shows and movies. There are downsides too. The main one is that, of course, it's illegal, it's very not good, never do that. Also, it's less convenient. You'd have to learn how to torrent. You'll have to be extra careful because obviously there is no legal oversight of pirate websites, so you're putting yourself at risk by engaging with them. Finally, it is evil. Don't believe me? Well, Meta says that piracy is actually okay, and since Meta is evil, everything they endorse is evil too, so we cannot do that, unfortunately. In fact, all this talk about sharing things for free is a sin against capitalism, the one and only economic system. Fortunately, we can repent and be forgiven by the unseen forces of the free market by engaging in a holy ritual, buying stuff online. But how do we do that? Amazon is obviously off limits. Temu and AliExpress are hardly more ethical than Amazon. So how do we buy stuff online? Well, there is no single global alternative to any of the websites that I mentioned, but fortunately there are many good regional alternatives. For example, I live in the Netherlands and I use bol.com fairly often. It's a good website. It's available in Belgium also, and it has pretty much everything you would expect to find on Amazon, for example. There are many similar online stores specific for Germany or France or other European regions, and I cannot speak for them because I never tried to use them, but I encourage you to check them out. Alternatively, you can just buy everything directly from the company that produces it. You don't have to use a general online store. You can just Google quant stuff, and then go directly to the website that produces this stuff and buy it there. In conclusion, it is relatively easy to ditch Amazon and just shop in a more localized manner. It might require a little more effort, but it is perfectly doable, and I encourage you to start doing that. You know what I just realized? All the technologies that we discussed so far are kind of boring and a bit old-fashioned. I mean, mobile phones, web browsers, search engines, online shopping, even social media are not exactly exciting and futuristic. They are just part of our underwhelming reality right now. There is not much progress being made in these areas. If anything, only mobile phones, I feel like, are a bit better now than they were, say, 5 years ago. But everything else? Browsers are worse now, search is worse now, online shopping is worse now, social media, don't even get me started on that. So when it comes to technology, there is only one thing right now that kind of moves forward, and not only that, but it moves at such a rapid pace that I feel like anything I say about it right now may become obsolete by the time I finish editing this video. I'm talking, of course, about artificial intelligence. Now, AI is a controversial topic, and it would take a whole video to discuss even briefly all the pros and cons of this technology. So I'm not going to do that here. I'm not going to jump into the discussion of whether or not AI is good or bad for humanity. But one thing everyone can agree on is AI is better now than it was like 5 years ago. It is definitely more advanced, and a lot of people feel like this innovation is only happening in the US and China, while the rest of the world is at best doing nothing and at worst invents some regulations that prevent their citizens from using the latest and most flashy AI products. Well, this assumption is actually not entirely correct, because there are AIs developed in Europe. The most advanced of them is Mistral AI and their product Lechat. Perfect name, by the way. There are also others. There is Italian Minerva AI and Polish Plum, I think. I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway. AI innovation is happening in Europe. And since a lot of people use ChatGPT on a daily basis, I think it's a good idea to present them with an alternative to ChatGPT. So, Lechat. Lechat is good. I tried it. Based on my experience and based on analysis from other people online, it is roughly as good as ChatGPT. There is no clear winner here. The pros of Lechat includes, of course, that it's made in France instead of being made in America. It's very fast. It relies on up-to-date information because it searches the web instead of relying on the outdated information it was trained on. It is free. You don't have to even register if you just download the app and start talking to it. So I encourage everyone to give it a try. And if you don't like it, you can go back to OpenAI and it's ChatGPT or whatever it is you are using right now. But from my experience, Lechat is a very viable alternative, and there is no reason not to use it unless you have like a very specific thing that only the most advanced American models can handle. Okay, so obviously I just scratched the surface of the iceberg that is American consumer technology we use in our daily life. And it will take a series of videos to fully cover this topic. And it will also take a series of videos to cover each individual alternative in more detail, because I just gave a brief overview and a brief summary of my personal experience. What I'm trying to say is this video has to end at some point, and this is the point. This is where we put a stop to it and move on to some final thoughts. Removing American tech from our daily life is not an easy task. In some areas, especially in social media, especially if you are a creator who depend on social media for income, it is pretty much impossible to do short term. But the good news is you don't have to do it all at once. Every little step counts. You can replace your search engine and web browser. You can start using Lechat instead of ChatGPT. You can try to explore free streaming services like Arte instead of scrolling through Netflix. You can try to figure out what's going on in the Fediverse. The point is, keep trying. Shop locally. Choose brands from Europe or other countries that are more deserving of your money than the unholy alliance of the US, Russia, and China. There are many resources that can help you with that. There are communities of like-minded people that you can join. I will leave links in the description as well. And remember, good things are possible, especially if we work together to make them possible. And that's it. Thank you all good people for watching. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, please let me know in the comments. I am kind of reinventing this channel, so feel free to suggest any topics that you want me to cover. I have plans to make videos about the Fediverse and some of the other tech that I covered in this video. So stay tuned and I will see you next time, hopefully. Bye bye.